In the heart of Africa, where the ancient trees whispered secrets into the wind and the stars blinked knowingly over the savannah, there lived a creature of both terror and grace, a leopard, unlike any other. His coat was golden like the sun that bathed the land, and his eyes held the silence of the night. But this is no tale of teeth and claws. No, this is the story of a heart wild beating, fierce falling for the gentlest soul. They say long ago, before villages were fenced and children feared, the dark animals spoke. And though the language has been lost to time, some say, if you listen closely, the forest still remembers. Asterisk, asterisk, he was called Olabor, the Silent One. Feared across villages, he was known to hunt only under moonlight. Hunters spoke of him in hushed tones around the fire, saying he walked like a ghost, made no sound, and never missed a kill. His claws were curved like crescent moons, his growl low like thunder rolling over hills. But few knew his truth. Olabor was not just a leopard. He was a guardian of the forest, born under a rare blood moon, gifted with a soul part beast, part man. Though he walked on 4 legs, his heart remembered the ache of something deeper, something, human. He had watched generations of villagers come and go, watched boys grow into hunters, women into mothers, watched joy and war, famine and feast. But always from the shadows, he never interfered until her. Asterisk, asterisk, the village of Umuduru sat on the edge of the great forest where the baobabs touched the clouds and the rivers ran like silver snakes. It was a place of rhythm and routine, where mornings were for pounding yam, afternoons for tending crops, and evenings for stories by firelight. Among its people was a girl named Amara. Amara was unlike the others, while the other children played. She listened to the wind. While the women gossiped at the well, she wandered into the trees with nothing but a basket and a tune on her lips. She sang often songs her grandmother taught her, songs the birds seemed to echo. Her skin was the color of wet earth after rain, and her eyes held the curiosity of someone not fully of this world. She would walk barefoot, feeling the pulse of the earth through her soles. She wasn't afraid of the forest. In fact, the forest seemed to welcome her, and so did he. Asterisk, asterisk, one morning, the mist still rising from the wet grass, Amara walked deeper into the forest than usual. She was searching for wild herbs her mother had taken ill, and Amara believed nature had its own answers. Olabori watched her dot from the high trees. From behind thick leaves, from between shafts of sunlight, he watched. Her voice was like rain on dry soil. She sang softly as she gathered roots, not knowing she was stirring a soul long buried beneath fur and fang. And then it happened. A rustle. A hiss from beneath the brush. A viper coiled its tongue flicking, body tensing, ready to strike. Amara did not see, but Olabor did. Like a flash of lightning, he leaped. The snake struck at empty air. With a single swipe, he sent it sailing into the underbrush. And there he stood, between her and the danger. The great leopard, chest heaving, eyes glowing. Amara froze. He expected a scream, a run, fear. But instead, she whispered, "Thank you." And slowly, she backed away. Not a scream, not a sprint. A whispered thank you, and a look that pierced through the beast's flesh and reached the man buried beneath. Asterisk, asterisk, the days passed. Olabori found himself searching for her scent, listening for her songs. She returned often to the forest, never wandering too far, but always singing, always unaware she was being followed. He never showed himself again. Not fully. Once she caught the glint of golden eyes. Another time, fresh paw prints in the mud, far too large for any leopard. Still, she felt no fear. She began speaking aloud as she walked. "I know you're there. I hope you're the same one who saved me. You don't have to hide, but he did, because he was not like her. And though his heart stirred, he was still covered in fur, marked with nature's wild script. Or so he believed. Asterisk, asterisk, the forest was old, older than memory. And within it lay a place few dared to enter, a clearing where no birds sang, where even the trees seemed to hold their breath. There, under the roots of a twisted iroko tree, lived Nooko the Old One, a spirit, a seer, a weaver of destinies, and to her Olabori went. He bowed before her, head low, claws retracted. I have watched you from your first moon, she said. Why now do you speak? I feel, he rasped. For a girl, human? He nodded. You wish to be as they are. He hesitated. I wish to know her without fear. The Old One leaned closer. There is a way, but once taken, the path will not be easily walked. You will bear a skin not yours, and if you remain too long, you may never return. He nodded again, and so, under that twisted tree, as thunder rumbled and wind howled, the transformation began. His rosetted fur melted into skin. Claws drew back. His form stretched, spine cracking, muzzle receding. He became man tall, broad, with golden eyes that still glinted like fireflies in the dark. Asterisk, asterisk. Amara first saw him 3 days later. She was by the stream, humming as always, when the leaves rustled and a man stepped forth. Not a boy from the village, not someone she knew, but a stranger. His voice was soft, deep, with an echo of something wild. I heard you singing, he said. She smiled. You're the first to say that, stranger. You come here often? He asked. Amara tilted her head. Only when the forest calls. He chuckled. Does it call often? Almost daily. And just like that, their dance began. He gave no name, and she did not ask. Somehow, she knew not his name, but his presence. His soul, there was something untamed about him, something ancient. But it wasn't frightening. It was familiar, and so in the dappled light, with birds chirping above and water trickling nearby, the leopard and the girl began to fall in love. Not through grand gestures, but through silence, through glances, through the language of those who found what they never knew they were missing. Asterisk, asterisk. The forest was no longer just trees and shadows to him. Since he became a man, it had taken on new meaning. He could now feel the breeze, not only in his fur, but on skin. His ears no longer twitched at every bird call, but his heart beat faster whenever he heard her voice. They met often. Not in the village, never in the village, but always near the stream, or the great baobab with its sprawling roots, or sometimes beneath the watchful eyes of ancient termite mounds. And with every meeting, the silence between them grew more comfortable. He didn't speak much of his past, and she didn't ask. She too held secrets in her chest, fears that perhaps he would vanish like a dream one day. He marveled at her ease, how she walked barefoot even when the path was thorny. How she laughed, with her whole body, as if joy was something that couldn't be stored. And when she spoke of the stars or sang to the river, he felt as though the forest itself leaned in to listen. Still, a part of him trembled. The magic that gave him human form was not infinite. It pulsed through him like a second heartbeat, but it grew fainter with each passing day. The Old One had warned him, if you forget what you are, the forest will forget you too. And yet, how could he not forget when her hand brushed his, when her laughter danced across his skin, when she looked into his golden eyes and did not flinch? He was beginning to hope. Hope, what a dangerous thing for a creature of instinct. But even the wind can change direction. One morning, as he waited for her near the stream, he heard a different set of footsteps. Heavy, cautious. Not hers. He crouched, silent. eyes narrowing dut. Then he saw them, two boys from the village. Hunters, young, brash, with spears in hand and bravado in their stride. They joked loudly, not knowing how far sound travels when you're being watched. "And the prints go this way," one said. "Maybe it's the one they call the ghost cat." The other laughed. "Or maybe it's just a fat hyena." "Either way," the first one said, "I want its pelt." He felt something stir in him, anger, sharp and sudden. Not fear for himself, but for her. If they were tracking him, they might stumble across her. She would never suspect danger from her own people. Later that day, when they met again, she noticed he was quieter. "What is it?" she asked. He hesitated. "Do your people still fear the forest?" "They always have." "Why?" "They say it holds things that don't belong in the world of men." He looked at her a long moment and asked, "Do you believe that?" She didn't answer right away. She just looked at him, then said, "I believe the world of men is too small to understand the forest." That answer stayed with him. But the trouble was growing. 2 days later, the trap was set. A meat-laced snare hidden with care, laid along the very path he and Amara often walked. The boys had been smart, they had learned patience, but they hadn't accounted for her. Amara arrived early that day, a woven basket under her arm, humming something light and ancient. She stepped along the trail, unaware of the danger beneath the leaves. He arrived just in time to see her about to step into it. "Stop." She froze. His voice had never risen like that before. Startled, she turned. "What's wrong?" He was already moving, already yanking her back by the arm just as the rope snapped upward. The trap missed her ankle by a breath. She gasped. They stared at the trap and then at each other. She blinked. "That was meant for an animal." He nodded. "You knew it was there." Again, he nodded slowly. She stepped closer. "Who are you?" The wind shifted. Leaves rustled. "I think," she whispered, "I already know." He didn't speak. "Your eyes? They don't belong to a man." Still, silence. Then she stepped forward and did something neither he nor the trees expected. She reached out and gently touched his face. "I saw you once," she said, "before I ever met you. You saved me." He closed his eyes. "You were not a man then." The transformation came without ceremony. No thunder, no flashing lights, just a flicker, a shimmer of the air around him, and there he stood, again on 4 legs, muscular, graceful, golden. His eyes still burned with recognition. She did not flinch. She stepped closer still, and then she knelt before him. "I knew," she whispered. "I knew, but I wanted it not to be a dream." He lowered his head, a sign of trust, a sign of surrender. That moment bound them in a way no spell could. But peace in the forest is fragile. The 2 hunters, following the sounds, reached the clearing, and there they saw Itamara. Kneeling before the great leopard, they shouted. One raised a spear. Amara turned, shouted, "No, stop." But it was too late. The spear flew. He leaped. The blade grazed his side. Not deep, but enough to enrage. Enough to remind the beast of what he once was. He roared a sound so fierce the birds fled the trees, and the very earth trembled. But Amara stepped in front of him. "No?" The boys froze. Stunned, she held up her arms. "He's not your enemy. He's a leopard. He is more than that." The spear wavered. The forest quieted. Then came another voice, older, wiser. "You are right." The shaman of the village, dressed in white with lines painted across his face, had followed the hunters. Sensing something was awry, he stepped into the clearing like a man who belonged to both the past and the present. He looked at the leopard, then at the girl. "I had a dream," he said. "A dream the elders spoke of long ago. That one day the guardian of the forest, would choose love over nature. The boys stood silent. He is not a beast. He is the prophecy. Amara turned to the leopard. What does that mean? The shaman explained. There was once a spirit who guarded the forest. He was given the form of a leopard to protect balance. But he was cursed to walk alone unless someone saw the soul within him. And I did, Amara said softly. The shaman nodded. Yes, and now comes the choice. He turned to the leopard. You may remain as you are, beloved by one, feared by all. Or you may become man forever, but you will lose your power. Your bond to the forest will break. You will age. You will bleed. You will be mortal. The leopard looked at Amara. She did not plead, did not push. She only held his gaze. And in that gaze was every sunset, every song, every moment of laughter between them. He stepped forward. The transformation was quiet again. And there he stood. A man, a choice made. He took her hand, and the forest exhaled, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The news swept through the village like wildfire in dry grass. A stranger had emerged from the forest barefoot, broad-shouldered, with a wound on his side and golden eyes that held no lie. And Amara walked beside him, not behind, not afraid. The elders gathered in silence, their faces stern and unreadable. The children whispered, the hunters scowled, and the women clutched their beads and murmured prayers to the ancestors. But the shaman stood between them all, his staff planted firmly in the earth. He has chosen the world of men, the old man declared, and the forest has allowed it. Still, humans are slow to let go of fear. They called him Namdi. My father lives on, for no one knew his true name. And though Amara gave hers without hesitation, he offered only silence when asked where he had come from. He had walked out of the forest. That was all they knew. That was all they needed to suspect. The elders agreed. He would be watched, so he stayed on the edge of the village in a small hut made from sun-baked mud and palm fronds. Amara visited daily, bringing him food, showing him how to cook over fire, how to grind grain, how to be ... human, and he learned. Quickly, but silently. Some days, he watched the sky for hours, unused to the weight of skin that did not shed, of feet that did not leap. He missed the trees, the way the wind once sang through his fur. But when Amara entered, everything stilled. Her voice, her laughter, her hands and his hair, they were his new forest. And in her, he found rhythm again. At night, she sang to him, and when he slept, he dreamed no longer of the hunt, but of holding her hand beneath the moon. Still, tension thickened around them like the coming of rain. The village boys grumbled. The women murmured. She could have chosen anyone. She walks with a stranger. Where did he come from? Really? And then the drums began, slow at first. A rhythm of warning, then louder war drums, not of war within, but of something coming from outside. A neighboring village had been struck, fields burned, livestock taken. Raiders from beyond the rivermen with no gods, only greed. Word came that they were moving closer. The men gathered to prepare. Spears were sharpened, children were hidden. And the elders looked to Namdi. You came from the wild. Do you know these men? He said nothing. You were once Beastar, you warrior still. He only looked at the shaman. The old man stepped forward. He may no longer be a leopard, but the forest still remembers his name. That night, Amara found him sharpening a blade. Are you going to fight? She asked. I must. You don't have to prove anything. I'm not fighting. To prove, he said, I'm fighting to protect. But you could die. He smiled softly. That's what it means, to be human. Her eyes filled, but she nodded. Then she reached into her satchel and pulled out a necklace carved from bone and twine. a leopard tooth hanging at its center. "This was my grandmother's," she said. She said it was from the day she survived. The great cat that haunted the forest. She said she looked into his eyes and saw a man. He touched it gently. "Wear it," she said, "so you don't forget who you are." And he did. At dawn, they marched, the village men, faces painted, hearts trembling, dunt, and named at the front, barefoot, bare-chested, eyes like fire. The raiders came with smoke and laughter, their faces cruel, their machetes sharp, but they did not expect what met them, not just spears, but Namdi who moved like wind, struck like a shadow, and did not flinch when steel met skin. He fought not like a man, but like something older. The tooth around his neck glowed faintly, and for a brief moment, those watching swore they saw claws at the end of his fingers. Saw. His eyes flashed gold like a sun caught in a storm. The battle was swift, brutal, and when it ended, the village stood tall. Blood was washed from the soil. The drum slowed. NNM fell to his knees, not from injury, but from exhaustion. The elders bowed their heads. The children gathered, and the people chanted his name, not the name he gave, but the one the wind once whispered, Olabor. After the battle, he did not speak much. The villagers now greeted him with nods, with respect, with cautious admiration. Still, he kept to the edge of the village, and Amara came. Always. But something in him had changed. The fight had awakened a part of him he'd buried. One night, beneath the same moon where they first met, he turned to her and said, "I feel the forest calling me again." She said nothing. "I love you," he continued, "but I don't know if I belong here." "You do," she said. "You belong with me. But I am both man and beast, and now I am neither fully." She touched his face. "Maybe that's exactly what this world needs." Silence fell between them. She stood, took his hand, and led him back into the village, into the crowd, into life. And as they walked, the people stepped aside, not because they feared him, but because they finally saw him. Not as beast, not as man, but as both, as oat, as legend, as love made real. Asterisk, time passed, and the memory of bloodshed faded into the rhythms of daily life. The soil healed. Crops grew again. Children played freely, and the village, once suspicious, once divided, began to hum in harmony once more, at the edge of it all. In a hut that always smelled of river herbs and roasted yam, Livy Dinamdi and Amara. He still rose early, before the sun, the leopard in him drawn to silence and dawn. But now he watched the sky from the threshold of his home. Arms around the woman who chose to see his soul. Their life was simple, but it was not small. Each day they planted and taught. They laughed and worked. And each night, when the moon rose, Amara would light a fire and sing songs older than the village itself. Songs her grandmother taught her, songs the wind remembered. Sometimes, the villagers gathered near their hut just to listen. And over time, those same villagers who once whispered doubts and suspicion began to sing the songs too. But peace is never a promise. One evening, a girl barefoot and breathless ran into the village. "Something is wrong," she cried. "The animals are fleeing the forest. The river's path is changing." The elders called a gathering. The trees were dying, the shaman said. The ground felt poisoned. The spirits of the forest were restless. "It is not war," he told them, "but it is danger just the same." They looked to Namdi. He stood. Silent, he had not entered the forest since the day he chose love. Now it called him again. "I will go," he said simply. Amara stood with him. "Then I will go too." But he turned to her. "Not this time." She frowned. "Why not?" "Because this time, the forest isn't calling you." He walked alone, into the shadowed green. The canopy thickened above. The vines curled like whispers around him, but he moved forward. He no longer had claws, no sharp fangs, no wild strength, but he had memory. The trees remembered him. The ground did too, and somewhere deep within, the spirit that once wore fur still breathed. He found it the wound, a wide gash in the earth, a place where men had come to cut trees not for shelter, but for greed. They had taken the sacred wood. They had left poison. They had broken the forest's heart, and now the forest mourned. He knelt there, bare hands on the soil, and he wept, not with tears alone, but with memory. He remembered the way his paws once danced over leaves. He remembered the taste of river, water. He remembered the first time he saw her Amara curled under a tree, singing to herself, not knowing she was watched, and he whispered something then, not a word, but a promise. And the forest heard back in the village. The people gathered at the edge of the trees, waiting, praying. Days passed, no sign, and just as fear began to root again, he returned, but not as a man, not fully. His body shimmered half skin, half fur. His eyes glowed golden. Around his neck hung the leopard tooth Amara had given him, now pulsing faintly with light. He was not beast, not man. He was both dot and yet more. The forest had given him back, but changed. The shaman wept when he saw him. "You are no longer just Olabor," the old man said. "You are the bridge." The villagers knelt, and Amara ran to him. He held her, and in that moment, even the trees bowed. Asterisk, asterisk, years passed. Legends grew. Children born in the village were told stories of the leopard man who walked both worlds. Tio loved a girl and became a guardian, not by claw, but by choice. They said the rivers sang when he passed, that the animals followed him like old friends, that if you stood still enough near the baobab tree at night, you could still hear the songs Amara sang echo through the leaves. And in time, those stories became song, and the song became memory, and the memory became forever. Asterisk, asterisk. Some say love is a thing for humans, but the forest knows better. It knows that love is the oldest kind of magic, stronger than claws, braver than any hunt, and deeper than even the roots of the tallest tree. So the next time you find yourself walking a quiet path at twilight, and the wind shifts, and you hear a rustle, or a purr, or a voice not quite human, be afraid. It might be him, still watching, still protecting, still in love. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The forest healed slowly, reverently. The trees whispered softer. The birds returned. The river flowed truer than it had in seasons. And in the heart of it all, Namdi now, more than man, more than leopard, became something entirely new. Not a god, not a myth, but a living story. Yet even living stories face trials. Amara was the first to notice small things. At first, he slept less. His skin sometimes shimmered with a pattern not of scars, but of fur. When he was angry, his voice echoed too deeply, and his touch, gentle as it remained, carried a heat that did not feel mortal. She asked, one night under the woven mat roof, "Are you becoming something else again?" He didn't answer right away, just stared into the flame between them. "I thought I had chosen once," he said, "but maybe the choice is not once. Maybe it's again and again." "And what is the forest asking of you now?" He looked at her, not with worry, but with something older, sadder to choose between staying in this skin or becoming only spirit. Her breath caught. Spirit? The forest speaks in riddles, but it's clear it needs a guardian without blood, without bone, without boundaries. She reached across the fire, gripped his hand tightly. "But what about me?" "That's the pain," he said quietly. I can't be both. Not forever. The next day, he went to the shaman. The old man was dying, his eyes clouded, his back bent, but his voice still deep as the riverbed. You are changing again, the shaman said without being told. Yes. The old man nodded slowly. The forest asks a lot of its guardians, but so does love. Can I be both? No one ever has. Then what must I do? The shaman touched the earth beside him. You must speak to the first tree. NNAMDI. Blinked, the first tree is legend. All legends are true somewhere. He gave no directions. No path, because to find the first tree, you had to walk without knowing and trust. Namdi left that night, wrapped in silence, not even waking Amara to say goodbye. She would have followed. He knew. Tia. And he couldn't bear to ask her not to. He walked for days. The forest grew stranger the deeper he went. No birds, no footprints, no wind. Then dash, he found it. A clearing shaped like a bowl. Moonlight pooled in the center, and in it, the first tree. Its trunk was as wide as a house. Its bark shimmered like woven dusk. Its leaves did not rustle, but hummed softly. Like a lullaby only the earth could hear. He knelt, and the tree spoke. Not in words, but in memory. He saw himself as a cub. Before he ever thought of love, he saw Amara crying at the stream the day her mother died, singing to hide the pain. He saw every step they took toward each other, every risk, every silence, every sacrifice. And then he saw what would come. The forest would live longer than men. It would need a guardian forever. But to be that guardian meant losing the body he had chosen, and the warmth of the one who loved him. A choice, always. A choice. He returned to the village 3 days later. Hollow dash, eyed not from exhaustion, but from knowing. Amara met him with open arms. I'm here, she whispered. He held her like she was the last real thing left in the world, and, in a way, she was. I have to leave, he said. She didn't cry. Not yet. For how long? Forever. But not far. Will I see you again? He hesitated, then nodded. But not with your eyes. They gathered at the baobab tree where the story had first begun. The villagers came silent. Somber, the shaman was carried on a litter, too weak to walk, but too proud to miss the moment. Amara stood beside him, tall and beautiful in her silence. Namdi walked into the center of them all. He knelt, and he whispered, name his true name. And the wind heard, and the forest answered. A great light shimmered like fireflies swarming. His body lifted, not high, just enough, and slowly, gracefully, it faded. First the toes, then the hands, then the eyes, until only the leopard tooth necklace remained. Hovering in air, then dash it dropped, and the wind stopped. Amara walked forward. She picked up the necklace, held it to her chest, and only then, only when she felt the warmth of it, did she cry. Tears not of anger, not of loss, but of awe and love, they say. Amara never married. She became the next shaman of the village, first woman ever to hold the staff. She was called the Leopard's Bride, the keeper of the two worlds. She taught the children to listen to the forest, to sing to it, to ask its permission before cutting its trees, and sometimes, when drought came, or sickness, or war, she would go to the baobab tree alone, place her hand on the bark, and whisper, "Are you still there?" And the wind would rise. The leaves would shimmer. And somewhere, faint but clear, a purr would answer, "Yes, asterisk, asterisk." The years rolled onward like the river after the rains, and in the village where trees once wept and drums warned of death, peace grew like cassava, slow, steady, rooted deep. Amara, once the curious girl who sang to the stream, had become something more. Not just shaman, not just the leopard's bride. She had become the voice of the land itself, her hair silvered with age, her back bowed slightly. But her eyes, those same eyes that had once met Namdi's in the clearing still, burned with that fearless light. Children followed her like ducklings. She told stories beneath the moon, not just of war or hunger, but of love, of transformation, of the beast who became man, and the man who became legend. And each tale ended the same way, and even now, he watches where the wind bends the trees just so. There came a day, a cool morning, birds still asleep when Amara walked alone into the forest. No staff, no SATCH, no, just a small, woven pouch slung over her shoulder. She passed the place where she once found a bleeding man with golden eyes. She passed the tree where she had first kissed him. She passed the path no one else could see, until she came to the Ba. A Ba, it was older now, thicker, quiet. She placed a hand on its bark and waited. Nothing stirred, no wind, no glow, but still, she smiled. From her pouch, she pulled out seeds, small, dark, sacred. She dug gently with her hands and placed them in the soil. "Your turn," she whispered, then sat beneath the baobab and closed her eyes. When villagers found her, hours later, she was still there, sitting peacefully, breath gone, but smiling. And in her hand, she still held the leopard tooth. They buried her beneath that tree. No chants, no drums, only silence and petals. And for a long time after, no one sang. The forest, too, seemed to mourn. The animals stayed hidden. The wind forgot its voice. Until one day a little girl, no older than 5, wandered to the tree. She placed her ear against the bark and whispered, "Are you lonely?" And the wind rose. The leaves shimmered, and she laughed. Not afraid, just not. Just Knowing that little girl grew with wonder in her bones, she spoke to frogs, danced with shadows, climbed trees as if they were ladders to the sky, and sometimes she would vanish for hours, only to return with stories of golden eyes watching her from the forest. Her name was Tari. She was Amara's great-granddaughter, and she carried in her hands not just memory, but prophecy, asterisk, by her 10th year. Strange things began to happen. Leaves would flutter in her wake. Birds perched on her shoulders, unafraid. And sometimes, when she whispered to the trees, they whispered back. The villagers watched her carefully, wary at first, then amazed. The elders met, debating in hushed tones. "She is touched," one said. "She is cursed," said another. "She is chosen," said the oldest. Tar. I didn't care what they said. She kept walking barefoot, kept singing the songs Amara once sang. And one day, when lightning split the sky and rain drowned the crops, she walked to the first tree, a place only the bold dared go, and knelt. "Please," she whispered, "we need help." Silence, then wind, then voice. Not thunder, not human, but ancient and clear. "You are blood of the one who saw me. You are spirit of the one who chose love." Tari's eyes widened. "Who are you?" The voice chuckled low, like a purr beneath stone. "I am the one your people sing about. Are you? My great-grandfather. I am what he became, and you are what comes next." She returned to the village, soaked in rain, but glowing. From that day forward, crops grew faster when she sang. Illness fled from her touch. The wildcats prowled beside her. Without harm, she didn't call herself shaman, but everyone else did. And at night, when the stars were loud and the air still, she would sit beneath the baobab tree and sing, not alone, never alone, because the wind always sang back. So the story continues, not just as words, but as footsteps, as names passed down, as firelight on young faces, They say love is not enough. But the forest knows otherwise. It knows that love true loves transformation, that when a beast loves deeply enough, he becomes man, and when a man sacrifices purely enough, he becomes more than legend. He becomes the land, the whisper, the watcher, the guardian in the shadows. And when that love is passed down through stories, through song, through blood even, death cannot stop it. It becomes legacy. Beneath every root, behind every tree, and in every heart brave enough to choose love over fear. Asterisk, asterisk. Time moved again, and the village, wrapped in its rhythm of harmony and green, forgot how fragile peace can be. I grew stronger. Yes, but so too did the silence in the north. A silence that was not empty. But waiting, it began as whispers. Hunters spoke of strange fires seen on distant hills, of trees burned not for wood, but for message. And then came the birds, migrating far too soon. They flew in tight, frantic spirals overhead, refusing to land as though the earth itself had become unsafe. Tear stood at the river's edge one evening when the first omen showed itself. The moon rose blood red. It was not full, and yet it glared from the sky like an open wound. Children cried in their sleep that night, and no one sang. I went to the baobab tree and pressed her hand to its bark. What is coming? She whispered. The wind responded. But this time, it did not purr, it growled. That night, she dreamt of fire. Not just flames, but eyes made of it. Teeth forged from smoke. A shadow with no shape, and a voice so low, so ancient it made her bones rattle. You carry the mark of the forest, but you are still made of flesh, and I was banished by your ancestors' choice. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked in the dream. He gave up fury, kept it. He chose love. I fed on vengeance, but now I am coming back. Because you are not the only legacy. She woke, choking, sweating, and outside. A single tree had withered overnight. The forest was warning her. Something ancient was waking. She went to the elders, told them everything, but most of them were too old, too afraid, or too deep in comfort to remember the old ways. There is no war, one said. We have peace. Then why are the birds gone? Tari asked. Silence. Only one person believed her. His name was Obi, a boy, not much older than Tari. He was a quiet boy, always watching, always listening. He had grown up hearing tales of the Leopard Man. He had even seen the glowing paw prints once, when he was a child, leading to the river and vanishing in mist. I'll go with you, he said, voice calm. To where? To wherever the storm begins. They left that night to children with hearts louder than drums. The forest let them pass not easily, but with recognition. The trees shifted behind them. The vines cleared, and deep into the northern shadows they walked until the trees were no longer green, but ash-gray. Here, the birds no longer sang. Here, even the earth seemed to breathe slower. Here, something waited. They found the ruins of another village long abandoned. Huts collapsed. Fire pits cold, but in the center, symbols carved into the stone, not of their people, not of the forest, but of something older. Something that came before names. A spiral within a spiral. The symbol of Mad U, the leopard's brother. The one who chose rage. Legend never told his name before, only that he fought his brother tooth and claw, and lost, banished by the first. Tree swallowed by the mountain's mouth. But legends are like roots, they grow in secret. And now, Aramadu had found his voice again. Tari felt it before she saw it. The hum in the air, the tension in her spine. And then the shadow, massive, gliding between trees without shape, but not without weight. Obi froze. What is that? Something that hates what we are. What do we do? Tari stepped forward and began to sing. The song was the same one Amara had sung by the fire, the one passed down through lips and blood. And as her voice wove through the dead trees, they began to shake. The shadow hissed, coiled, and for a moment Tit vanished, but not before whispering once more, "Sing all you want, child of the leopard. I will return when the moon bleeds again." Tari and Obi returned to the village, and this time the elders listened, because they could feel the shadow in their dreams too. Now, because the earth itself had begun to moan, preparations began. Shrines were repaired, rituals relearned, children taught to read the signs in the wind, and Tari stood at the heart of it all. No longer girl, now guardian, not of the past, but of the storm to come. Some stories are not just told, some are inherited, like land, like scars. And the tale of the leopard who chose love was not the end. It was the beginning, because love is not only a shelter. Sometimes it's a sword. And when the red moon rises again, the forest will remember. Asterisk, asterisk, it began as a shiver in the leaves, a vibration in the roots, a quiet that pressed on the chest like an unseen hand. Then 3 nights after the last red moon, a child in the village vanished. A little boy named Chik. No scream, no struggle, just a circle of blackened grass where he'd been sitting, his carved drum still humming from the final beat. The villagers panicked. Old mothers wailed. Young warriors sharpened spears, long buried in peace. But Tari didn't blink. She knelt where the boy had vanished and placed her palm on the ground, warm, still breathing. Arimadu has opened the path between the worlds, she whispered, and the forest confirmed it. The wind didn't just whisper, this time meant. Howled Tatarai gathered the children in the center of the village, taught them chants not sung in generations, drilled them in silence, trained them to feel the movement of the forest, not just hear it. Obi watched her with awe. She wasn't the girl he'd followed into the north. She had become fire and flesh. "Do you think we can stop it?" he asked. "No," Tari answered. "We won't stop it." "Then what?" "We will survive it." Asterisk, that night, the forest split. The path that had always twisted and curved suddenly opened into a straight line. Unnatural, unwelcome. And at the end of that line, a figure tall, hunched, wrapped in shadows shaped like fur. Its eyes glowed to burning. Coals in a face made of smoke. The other leopard had returned, but this one did not walk with grace. He stalked, heavy, angry, a spirit formed of every rage ever buried. He stepped into the clearing and the sky shattered with thunder. Mad you, the brother. Banished. The guardian rejected, returned, double quotes. Who stands for the forest now? He roared, voice scraping against the bones of the earth. And Tari stepped forward. "I do." Arimadu tilted his head. "You, child of whispers? Leaf of the old tree. I am fire," she said. "Born of love, healed by loss." He laughed her. "Sound like wood splintering. Love is soft. Weak. The forest will fall under teeth, not songs." "Then bite," she said, and raised her hands. Behind her, the baobab tree glowed. The first tree flickered with light no torch could make, and from the soil, roots moved. Real ones, old ones. They rose like snakes, weaving between the villagers, encircling the children, and Arimodu's eyes widened. "He's still here," the shadow growled. "Always," Tari said, and then it began. Not a battle, a reckoning. The trees fought first, whipping their branches like spears. The vines lashed like whips. Arimadu tore through them, fire leaking from his mouth. Villagers scattered, protecting the children. Dragging the wounded to the shrine, Tar stood her ground. She sang not loud, not scared, steady, a song her great-grandmother once sang to a bleeding leopard long ago. And as her voice rose, so did the earth. Cracks formed beneath Erimadu. The forest was remembering, but the shadow was not just memory, was pain and pain. When denied, becomes hunger. Eri Madu lunged, not at Tari, at. Obi, the boy tried to dodge too slow. His chest was torn. Blood hit the leaves. Tari screamed, and her song changed. No. Longer gentle, now a roar, the baobab lit with pure gold, and from its trunk he returned, not flesh, not bone, but presence, a shimmer, a shape, a leopard made of light, eyes glowing, not with rage, but with grief and power. Nnamdi returned from the roots. The first guardian, the one who chose love. He didn't speak. He moved faster than breath. He hit Erimadu like lightning in a tree. They rolled, shadow and shimmer, tooth and mai, and fang, fire and wind. The forest held its breath. Tari crawled to Obi. Bleeding fast. Stay with me, she begged. Obi coughed, eyes barely open. Sing again. She did, even as tears fell, even as the battle raged, even as the light began to fade. Then dash silence, a final. Flash dot and both shapes Saramadu and Nnamdi dash vanished. Not a trace, only ash, dot only stillness. And in Tari's lap, Obi opened his eyes, dot alive. Asterisk, they say the battle burned away the path between worlds. They say the forest rebuilt itself that night, root by root dot, and under the baobab, where two brothers had last touched, two flowers grew one gold, one red, twined together, never wilting. Tari would live many more years. She became more than shaman. She became history. She trained a generation of guardians, not warriors, not witches, but singers. Those who knew that love is the strongest spell. And though she never saw Namdi again, every time the wind passed through the leaves, just so, she smiled and whispered, "Thank you." Asterisk, asterisk, after the fire faded and the wounds healed, the village entered a time they would later call the quiet blessing. No beasts threatened them. No. Shadows crossed their fields. Even the rains came on time. But it wasn't just chance, no. Peace like that doesn't bloom from nothing. It grows from blood, from sacrifice, from choices made under a bleeding moon. And so, every season, when the moon turned golden full, the villagers would gather beneath the baobab, not to dance, not to pray, but to remember. Asterisk. They'd light no fires, speak no words. Instead, they'd sit in a circle and listen. Because sometimes, if you listened just right, the tree would hum. A deep, slow sound. Older than drumming, older than names. And in that hum, children swore. They heard a heartbeat. Tr, I grew older. Not weaker, only wiser. Her hair whitened like ash, but her eyes never dimmed. She still sang, though now in whispers. Still walked the forest. Though more slowly, she never left the village. Not again. Not because she feared what waited, but because she knew the world had already come to her through her. Obi stayed by her side. They never married, but their bond was thicker than ceremony. He became the village's voice to the outside world, trading stories and seeds with distant lands. And every time he returned, he brought new tales. Of cities that burned too bright, of rivers poisoned by greed, of forests cut down for gold no one could eat, and always Tari would shake her head. They forgot, she'd say. They forgot the story, Obi would sigh, but we haven't. And they'd sit in the quiet, just listening. Asterisk, when Tari felt her final days coming. She asked for no farewell, no chance, no offerings, just a single request: plant me beneath him. No one asked who him was. They already knew. She passed at dawn, eyes open, lips curved in a soft smile, one hand resting on the earth and beneath the baobab. They buried her, not in a grave, in the roots, wrapped in the soil of her ancestors. No. Stone marked the spot. Only a song, etched into bark. Just 8 words. Love once changed a beast, so it changed us. Seasons passed, then years, then decades. Children became elders. Elders became memory, and still. The tree stood, now larger than ever, so wide its shade covered 3 huts, so strong no wind could sway it. And at its center where 2 flowers once grew now bloomed a third, a blossom neither gold nor red, but a soft, pulsing white dot, a live dot breathing. Asterisk, asterisk, you may not believe this. That's all right, most don't. But if you ever walk far enough into the old forests of the continent, if you pass the fig trees and the termite mounds, you find a path that disappears behind mist, and follow it without fear. You may find it. The tree that remembers, still humming, still glowing, and if you're lucky, your heart is clean, and your song is strong. You may see them. The leopard made of light, the girl who sang to a river, the boy who followed her into the storm, and they may look at you not with suspicion, but with recognition, because stories know stories, and legacies always seek a new voice. One night, under a waxing moon, a child was born in the village, skin soft as silk, eyes bright as stars, and on her left shoulder no birthmark, just a paw print, small, golden, and glowing. Asterisk, asterisk, they named her Nala, and as she grew, she laughed with the river, danced with the leaves, and once, just once, was seen sitting beneath the baobab, humming a tune no one had taught her. The same tune Amara once sang, the same tune Tari sang at the end, and the wind. It sang back, of course it did, because the story wasn't over. It never is. Asterisk, asterisk, and so. The forest rested, not in sleep, but in balance. The trees whispered, the wind watched, and the river carried stories from root to root, but balance is not stasis. Every new leaf must fall one day. Every piece must be remembered, or it begins to rot. And as Nala grew, so did the world around her. The outside came, knocking not with war drums, but with gifts, cameras, laptops, roads paved in smoke. The world had grown loud again, and the village, it listened, curious, but cautious, because it had something the world didn't understand. It had a story, and that story had teeth. Nala was curious, not rebellious, just hungry. Hungry for the truth behind the songs, the real meaning behind. The flowers under the baobab. She asked questions no child had asked in years. Where did Tari go? Why do I dream of glowing eyes in the dark? Why does the wind sometimes say my name? One night, as the villagers gathered for the festival of memory, Allah slipped away. She didn't run, she walked down into the forest, alone, barefoot, fearless, and the forest let her in. No cracking branches, no thorns in her feet, just silence. Then, music. Not loud, not human, but melodic, organic. And she followed it until she reached the river. The same river where Amara once wept, where Tari once sang. The water glowed, and in its reflection, she saw him not as a beast, not as a shadow, but a leopard, made of light, golden, translucent. His eyes deep as stars. He didn't speak with words. He didn't need to. Nala understood. You know me, she whispered. Yes, his voice echoed inside her chest. Because I knew your soul before it had a name. Are you real? I am the part of your story that never ended. What do I do?" He stepped forward, placing his paw upon hers. "Sing. Asterisk, asterisk," and so she did. Not with perfect pitch dot, not with practiced tone, but with truth. The truth of all that had come before. The girl who tamed a predator with kindness, the guardian who protected her people with song, the boy who stood with her in the storm, and the leopard who gave up fury for love. She sang for all of them, and the river danced the next morning. She returned no fear in her eyes, only clarity. She told the village what she saw, and for the first time in many years, the elders wept, not from fear, from recognition. She was the next chapter, not just a child of the story, but the story itself, waking again. From that day forward, the world outside never stopped pressing in. But now, the village didn't resist. It blindly taught the visitors how to listen before they spoke, how to sit before they built, how to sing before they took, and people came journalists, filmmakers, students. Some stayed, some left changed, because everyone who heard the full tale of the leopard and the girl carried it with them like a seed. Some planted it, some forgot it, but the ones who remembered became storytellers to dot asterisk, asterisk, and you. Yes, you. Listening now, you're part of that story too. Because stories are living things. They sleep in silence, but they wake in ears. And now that you've heard it, it belongs to you. Will you carry it? Will you protect it? Will you pass it on? Because somewhere far from here, another child is being born. And maybe one day, they'll hear a song in the wind and recognize it. And maybe, just maybe, they'll walk into the forest, find a river glowing like gold, and meet a leopard who says, "I've been waiting for you," because love doesn't end, because legends never die, because some stories become the forest itself, and the forest, it remembers everything. Asterisk, asterisk, thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment "end" so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, stay happy. Goodbye, asterisk.